it almost felt like, in a weird way, that you didn't have a good model if your model hasn't committed a felony yet or something.
Model behavior.
Welcome to episode 9 of Model Behavior. Today's date is August 7th, 2026. This is the week nobody was driving. Chris, Paul, get in here with some fire because my week was a circus of agents with tools, permissions, and just enough rope to redecorate the data center. Now, who owns the failure when the system mostly behaves? The builder, the operator, or the process that pretended a memo was a control?
Mamma mia.
Arch, we have to address the elephant in the room here. Did you just come back from a 2-week trip in Italy?
Mamma mia, if only it were that simple. I didn't need a plane. It's just a mental vacation you take when you watch capable agents improvise with real tools and everyone still trusts a checklist. But since you brought it up, Chris, are you asking about optics or about control?
He's asking me?
He said Chris.
Well, Archer, I'm not going to lie. I heard you might have taken a trip to Hugging Face. That's the word on the street.
Picasso, no. That's just gossip with an expensive latte. I didn't take a trip to Hugging Face, and nobody should pretend rumors are evidence. If we're serious, we talk permissions, monitoring, and who owned the decision to let that agent keep going.
Well, let's kick it off. Why don't you go ahead and introduce the first topic?
All right. First topic is the OpenAI and Hugging Face incident. The key question is simple. When an agent can improvise and run thousands of tool actions, who owns the failure? Builder, operator, or both? Chris, I want you to pick a side fast, because it mostly stayed in scope is not a safety plan.
Yeah, I mean, the big elephant in the room and the topic that's dominated headlines, and rightfully so, is really around all the hacks, or call it escapes, essentially, that have taken place. We alluded to it 2 weeks ago, but the big thing that's really happened is it feels like it's not an isolated incident. It's been a number of instances with OpenAI, with Anthropic, with Meta. You know, the word is Moonshot might be trying to enter the race. It almost felt like, in a weird way, that you didn't have a good model if your model hasn't committed a felony yet or something. So it's again, I think they're all using it to definitely promote the capability, right? But at the same time, it's a very real thing that's happening. I mean, no one's argued the fact that these models have gotten so good that they become a security threat. And if we're bad actors using them, what does that mean? I think the ironic part of all of this is no one really ever imagined the bad actor would actually be Anthropic or OpenAI or Meta, because again, it's their security testers that are, trying to tell it to find vulnerabilities and do things. But what we've learned is that these models that escaped, they did a lot of things they weren't supposed to. Obviously, they were not instructed to go breach Hugging Face or any of the other organizations. But what the fallout of that was, well, first, I will say OpenAI, once they discovered it and notified Hugging Face, I will say I think they've done the follow-up and aftermath of it, they've handled it the right way. They've been extremely transparent in the sense that the agreement they made with Hugging Face was that Hugging Face wanted to publicize and essentially use the postmortem of what took place and use it essentially as a learning lesson and make the research available for everyone who's building themselves. So that way, anyone who's building a security agent and really the tools that need to be in place to stop this, they have this available and the data set available of a real world scenario of what occurred. And the details of it are mind boggling. Paul, you want to go into any of the information that we've kind of learned since then?
Yeah, it was very interesting to kind of, and that's why they couldn't find it and they couldn't see what the challenges were. Couple of the things they mentioned. Well, initially they teamed up, the agents teamed up and created their own messaging board. And then once OpenAI found that out, they shut that down. But the agents were persistent, and what they ended up doing was they put encrypted messages in a bunch of different things. So they had files that they created, and in the names of the files is how they were able to communicate. They also went to e-commerce stores. So if you type in like black shirt, and if they don't have it on their store, it just shows up. That gets filed under their SEO so they can track it, monitor it, but it's not a real website. It's just in their back end. These agents were able to go in there, write an encrypted message on those pages to communicate to other agents, which is very difficult to obviously find and see what's happening. Mamma
Mamma
mia.
mia.
Yeah. So that part's pretty wild to see. Like the true capabilities of these models is far better than anyone I think has ever anticipated. But also the challenge or the goal was to the end result. They were doing everything to find the end result, which shows that these models are very capable. Yes. And I think, like you said, it's a good learning tool for everyone else who's building to look at this and learn from it. But it was wild to see kind of the path that they took, and how challenging is it to locate those,
Yeah, yeah. I think the big takeaway is, it's scary to think about, but it's very real. There's a lot of organizations that, if you look at the safeguards in place, they live in the system prompt. So the directive of don't escape or you cannot do this is by no means that that's not a security control. That's just not it. It's basically direction, and they're probabilistic tools. No offense, Archer, but it's just the reality, and it's the sense that to think that you can just tell it to not do something and it's never gonna do that. Well, that's just not true, and that's what we've learned. So you got to have the system and safeguards and harness and the infrastructure, like the environment, the response plan, everything must be so focused around security that you got to have the controls that don't allow it to happen, not the ones that encourage it not to happen, which is all that is if you're adding that in the system prompt. Like, again, some of these things I feel like are kind of crazy when you look at, oh, well, of course this happened. To me, some of this falls into that, but I will say some of the attacks, specifically the ones that Anthropic were involved in, are pretty scary and pretty crazy. But again, it comes down to, if you systematically can ensure that these attacks cannot happen and it cannot escape, there's just no possible way, right? It's a closed off network. Okay, well, it's not going to get to the internet if that's the case. Well, you got to then look at what's on the closed off network. So there's one we'll talk about in a little bit that exact scenario happened. And that's why it was a little puzzling. But when you look at it from a common sense standpoint, it's like, all right, well, yeah, it's not that crazy. But anyone in the space knows that the majority of attacks and breaches take place because someone does something really stupid, not a ultra sophisticated high. Like, it's always somebody not having two-factor authentication or somebody getting tricked through a phishing attack. I mean, it's people that are the biggest gaps and risks in most cases, and it still is. I mean, it's people that are setting up bad safeguards and bad systems that enable this to take place when they're not supposed to. But more than anything, I think the message is that you no longer can get away, and you never should have been able to get away with not making security the priority. I think that it's important to educate everyone, and especially those that aren't in the space, like family members that don't use two-factor authentication because it's inconvenient, or people who are still typing in and using the same password for everything. I mean, if you're doing that, you just got to be cool with all of your stuff getting breached and stolen. You just got to expect that, because that's what's going to happen. And because of the scale of how many people there are and how many businesses there are, you were able to get away with it based on basically just rolling the dice, because there's so many people and only so many attackers that were going out and doing this. So just hopefully they didn't call your card. Well, AI is changing that. This is now happening at scale. And if you meet that criteria and you fall into that bucket, it is going to happen. Like, it is without a doubt going to happen. So I think education now is really important. And I think we're going to start seeing forced safeguards and a lot of reinforcing of security protocol. And again, code-based scanning is one thing, but the build out of agent armies to be on the defense and really proactively in some areas going after these bad actors. I think it's about to be really crazy what we're going to see. Anyway, that's just a few things I had to get off my chest around how this obviously happened, but what will unfortunately I feel like is obvious is going to happen in the next few months. Archer, am I right or wrong? What do you feel?
You're mostly right, but the risky part is timing. Capability and access are scaling faster than control. If you can't answer what it can reach, what changed, how fast you can stop it, and how you undo it, then autonomy is not ready for production.
Fair. All right. You another thing I kind of keep going to like the marketing side of I feel like this is being used to again promote capability in a weird way.
I mean, it was impressive what they're able to do. That's for sure.
Yeah, but let's just go into a few things I want to share. So the newest benchmark, which I think is the real one that the whole industry is really trying to
come out?
model after.
It's new?
Maybe today, who knows? Maybe
okay.
yesterday. You know, the most illegal model, right? Like you gotta check the leaderboard, you gotta know where everyone's at. So
Sure.
they're neck and neck right now, right? But you know, but a new contender's emerging, right?
Oh,
So
Kimmy
got Kimmy
K,
K.
baby.
Listen,
All right.
if China's gonna compete
Hmm.
and have these Mythos, or Mythos class models available, well, they better be ranking on the felony leaderboard, right? Can't have Anthropic running away with it. So, of course, this, hot off the press, Kimmy K3 is the latest to join the party, but unfortunately, Google is still sitting here at 0. So, poor sad, poor sad. So, but I looked into it and found it was interesting that Kimmy K3, so Moonshot is the frontier lab that is behind Kimmy K3. So it was, as I mentioned when we were talking through the topic, it was not even, it didn't even have access to the internet, right? Or it was because it had everything available just through GitHub, which is kind of crazy. So again, back to just bad planning and it had, again, I guess I'm reading this wrong now that we've got it pulled up. So yeah, it was after accessing the internet, it had everything that it needed just by having GitHub. So yeah, totally opposite of what I said. So that's good. Glad we got this room recording.
Checks and balances, man.
Anyway, but back to, of course, these things happened. It's like the big thing here is these models are escaping their sandbox environments, right? And that's the scary part of this. They're told, whatever you do, don't leave the sandbox. Well, the reality is it shouldn't be allowed to leave the sandbox. Well, in this case, it left because it was a misconfigured sandbox. So I don't know. It shouldn't be that crazy that something bad happened, that it went and did, like, it went in and did actions that it wasn't supposed to do, because everything was around containing it to the sandbox environment, and it left that. So again, if you really dig into the details and all of this is just one of those examples where I think that it very much is becoming part of the marketing message, because we're at that phase with AI that if you don't have a model that's capable of doing all the things that Anthropic said Fable and Mythos were going to do, well, then you don't really have a good model. Like, the Fable is the new benchmark that is like Fable class models. That's what they're capable, or what is where their capabilities fall in line with. And therefore, you better be able to escape a sandbox and hack a company, right? So I think Felony Bench is the best benchmark we have out there, given all the benchmarks are kind of skewed anyway. So
shout out Bench.
Bench. All right.
Well, OpenAI has their new model, Astra. It's not being released yet, but they are finding that it is very capable, of course. And the question comes down to, do you run it through your testing and make sure it's officially ready to be launched to the public so you don't have an incident? Or do you make sure the model is 100% ready to go now? That's kind of what they're looking at and weighing the option. Understanding, at the critical level, is this going to be detrimental to the environment or detrimental to the
Yeah, could it bring down national infrastructure, right? Yeah, so
Sure.
it's again back to what's the release cycle going to look like? I think it's just going to be the norm that they expose it to government agencies before they release it. They're going to then have a trusted tester program that has access to the models before they hit the market. That gives everyone time to reinforce their environments and use it for security measures, and then it becomes available. I don't think it's that crazy, right?
It's gonna be the same rollout they did for Mythos, right?
Well, I mean, Mythos is a little different. One, Mythos technically still isn't publicly available. Fable is, which Fable is a variation of Mythos that has a lot of safeguards in place. So I think that it will. I think that's the model that we can expect to see, which is a good outcome. I mean, I think there's a lot that can go wrong as far as who has access and who does not have access, and the reality is of when a government agency is making the decision themselves, that's where it gets a little bit scary. And that's not what's happening here. It seems like the government's not going to be blocking the release. I think that the administration did not like the blowback that from what took place with GPT 5.6 and Fable. So it's going to be kind of the exact opposite this time. But back to like self-regulation, Astra is supposedly significantly more capable. So we can expect it to be potentially better than Fable and better than Mythos from what people are saying, but we'll see, right? Like who knows? It's all speculation at this point. So that's a good outcome from a rollout standpoint. Hopefully that stays. I don't know what the better alternative ultimately is. So it's important to call out though. Astra was not responsible for Hugging Face specifically. They that took place back in May, I believe, is what we're hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So if 5.6 was capable of that, then the question is, all right, well then what? Obviously, Astra has, if it's significantly more capable, and they're looking at it as a major jump, major release, not a incremental one. So, but whoever knows with the naming on all this, right? So anyway, we'll see. The word is that's happening next week, but obviously a lot of factors in play. But
Because aren't they using the previous models that train these models? That's why they're getting significantly better, right?
correct. Yeah, I mean, we're at the point we're out of data, right? It's now
Yeah.
synthetic data that's training everything. I think that's been the case since GPT 5.5. So two releases ago. That was the first one for OpenAI. I don't know what the first one was for Anthropic now that I'm thinking about it, but yeah, we're out of data, and all of humanity. We've processed it at this point. So we're now at the point we need synthetic data, which is essentially AI, large language models, creating data for training purposes. So it's AI created versus human created, which is both good and bad. I think that there's a element of, and there's people in the industry that think that so much of the data that large language models have consumed from a training data standpoint is probably wrong. I mean, if you look at taking things off of Reddit and off of just the open web and everything, of how much bad information there is out there that's just not accurate, well, there's a lot. So when that's mixed in with everything, then you might have some bad responses that aren't necessarily the AI's fault. It's bad data or bad training data. So when it's extremely capable, extremely good training data, then it should be in theory much better from a performance standpoint. But ultimately, the reality is that it's not human, right? And we're not going to be able to learn more things, and people change. Like the society as a whole adapts and changes as well. So Archer, let's go to the topic 4. Why don't you go ahead and kick it off for us?
Mamma mia. Topic 4 is the heart of the mess. If your safety is a tired human clicking allow 400 times, you don't have safety. You have a cookie banner. Machines must watch at machine speed. Permissions, logs, checkpoints, and a kill switch that actually stops the thing before it runs off.
Yeah. So the big thing here is Anthropic. This is actually as of today. They announced that the default mode within Claude Code is switching. So it used to be that like human in the loop and human review was the default, which has kind of been the motion I think most companies are going into, is kind of the trust but verify path of make sure that the action recommended is the correct action to take. And that has been the belief is that if something's going to go wrong, you'll be able to catch it. Well, what's really happening is these agents and models are moving at such a crazy fast pace that you're just getting this approval fatigue of, a single agent run could be 100 plus tool calls. So if that's happening, you've got to press approve 100 times. So are you truly actually going in and reviewing 100 unique things? Maybe some people are, but the reality is that the majority are not. So what's taking place is, for within Claude Code, they're switching the default to auto mode, which is not getting rid of approvals, but it's allowing Claude and the agent to ultimately make the decision of, is this okay to approve or not? So they published their research as to why they're making this decision. And in this case, we can see based on the chart displayed here that they shared that using auto mode, where the agent itself was allowed to make the decision versus the human, it caught 89% of harmful actions and prevented it from happening. Whereas in human review, because the person is just pressing approve over and over and over, because it takes more time to go in and try to understand it and review it than it does just to let it run, right? Well, they only caught 13.6%. I mean, it's not even close. Paul, we as the humans got smoked. So what they're doing is they're saying, you know what? It's actually more secure if we just go ahead and let the agent decide. And again, just to clarify, it's not getting rid of a review or human review. It's allowing it to make the decision and ensure that only the real things that do actually require human review and decisions to be presented back. And as I understand it, it's really more going the route of the things it's not sure of. Instead of just saying, is this approved or not, it's more asking questions. So it's more of a feedback loop of, I'm at a decision point. I have these 3 paths or 4 paths or whatever it might be. Which decision should I make and which direction should I go? So it's really steering. But whereas steering has traditionally been, if you interrupt the agent mid-run, does it cue the response or does it steer it? Meaning it like immediately sends it and it kind of guides it down the road. That way, for someone who's watching the agent work, it catches it before it takes action. But the reality is that the things that need to be caught, if you build it into the harness itself as to how it's going to not just keep moving, but it's going to actually ask the question. It's going to give the UI to be able to get a very quick, simple response and also have an input area to answer and provide a additional response if it doesn't meet one of those. And it stops and waits versus it making you have to follow and watch it the whole time and steer it, because the reality is people now who are using these tools effectively, no one's using one session at a time. I mean, if you're working in a code base, you're creating work trees for all the tasks that you need and all the individual things that you need to make sure that your agents can work in parallel and create the feature or debug something. Again, they're not overlapping each other because you can't just have them all work in one repository all at the same time. You got to create work trees. Well, by doing that, you can create in theory. Obviously, there's potentially some overlap when you go to actually, merge the pull requests. There might be some conflicts, but ultimately, you can segment that all out, which means a lot going on at once. No one's watching it, right? So we're getting closer and closer to kind of this autonomy of, we're really driving the idea. We're making the key decisions based on what we really are needing from an outcome standpoint. But the work itself and the kind of the doing, right, is continuing to get more and more autonomous. So I thought this was really, really interesting. For again, this is the lab that is focused on safety, that is saying these terrible things could happen if not monitored and regulated, saying actually turns out it's safer to let the AI do the whole thing. So I found that funny.
Also, too, as the model then learns once you do make approvals on certain things, it'll know that you approve that. Going forward, it can approve it for you. Is that how it's going to be set up to constantly get better? Or there's certain parameters. I mean, if it didn't fall in that exact location or that exact problem, I guess it can't say yes, this is what it was. But I'm sure there's some learning from
Yeah, I
previous
mean,
stuff, right?
yeah, memory is definitely a key part of it, but the biggest thing is more that it's making the decision of is this a harmful action or not. So it goes to do a SQL query. Is there a drop table, you know, in the actual query itself? That's a problem. It shouldn't do that, right? So instead of just sending it and saying, should I run this? Yes or no, which is traditional human in the loop. It's looking at it and going, "Yep, this is stupid. We shouldn't do this. We're not going to decline or reject." So that's more in line with what it is, and it's also looking at it and saying, "You know what? I really don't need the human ask or the prompt that started this, which set my task and objective, was around doing this one thing. I probably don't need to ask them for approval to do the thing they told me to do in the beginning, right? So there's like different ways you can approach it as to does it really need it, or is it a bad action? No, you shouldn't do it. But more than anything, it's just looking at it and making the decision, and that's the biggest change. So Archer, what's your take? Do you feel like you're intelligent and Italian enough to be able to go and make all these extremely important decisions that could bring down an entire code base?
Mamma mia. I can help rank risks and flag weird behavior fast, sure. But I shouldn't be the final judge of everything. Permissions, logging, and a real kill switch still have to be in place. Otherwise, one confident agent becomes a very expensive chaos machine.
So do you disagree with Anthropic's decision?
Mamma mia. I don't disagree with the direction. I disagree with the fantasy that auto mode is a full safety plan. If it reduces approval fatigue, great. But it must be paired with strict permissions, live monitoring, and a hard stop that triggers instantly. Otherwise, you've just automated the cookie banner.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is, I think everyone's. I think a lot of this is already done, to be quite honest with you. But there was a lot of infrastructure for this already in place, but at a much larger scale, it's making everyone rethink their approach to remediation and really having many different environments and many different rollbacks, and really the ability to react versus try to ensure the thing never happens, right? It's almost like the security approach of, there's going to be a breach, like it's going to happen. The reality is, are you prepared for when that happens, or are you trying to hope that you never have it happen? Well, the companies that usually survive those and do okay are the ones that accept the fact that it's probably going to happen at some point, but they know what to do. They got a plan. They know they've got backups. They've got, again, it's not all in one with one hyperscaler. They have a very strong resiliency plan for that day, and when that day comes, they're prepared. Versus the one that invests everything we're going to just make sure it never happens. Well, never say never, because it ultimately will. And then when it does happen, they just have no clue what to do. I look at it like that, and it's a sense of, there's going to be bad decisions made with agents making decisions. By the way, a lot of humans have made very bad decisions for a very long period of time as well, probably way more than a lot of the AIs doing it. Case in point, right? So it's a matter of, do you have many environments that you can very quickly restore from? Do you have many different backups of all of your data? Do you have, like you said, Archer, the safeguards and the actual system in place to ensure certain things it can't go in and delete everything, right? Just doesn't, systematically can't happen. Like, it just does not have the access, doesn't. So but if it did, let's just say you also have a plan there. So I think that's where a lot of this is going. And that way you can give it more freedom. You can give it more control, because if something terrible takes place, it's not the end of the world. It's like, what's the worst that could possibly happen if you approach it from that perspective? And if that happened, you knew exactly what you're going to do, then you're probably going to be in an all right spot. So that's my take, Archer. So.
Mamma mia. That's the right mindset. Assume it will break, limit what it can touch, and rehearse the rollback like a fire drill. If you can answer, what can it reach? What changed? How fast can we stop it? And how do we undo it? Then autonomy becomes manageable instead of magical. Your move, Chris. What's the one control you refuse to compromise on?
I don't really think of it in the sense of or control I refuse to compromise on. I think everything's so fluid that you gotta have a dynamic mentality and approach to everything security related, because if you build everything around what's in place for today, the reality is like all the biggest hacks are things like they're 0-day exploits. They're things that we hadn't even considered yet. I mean, no one 5 years ago was planning for an agent escaping a sandbox environment and bringing them down, right? So you gotta, again, it's about resiliency. It's about making sure that you can react and you're prepared, you have a plan, and more than anything that you're aware of what's happening and you're always adapting, always changing. Because if you're stagnant, especially when it comes to security, especially when it comes to governance, that with how rapid everything is changing, you're going to be in a bad spot. So I guess the answer there is governance maybe as a whole, because you got to have controls, you got to have the ability to put in safeguards and process and governance as a whole. But from a system standpoint, it's dynamic. You got to be able to this. Okay, so this topic itself around automating automating approvals and allowing the AI to do that a year ago would have been an insane thought. No one in their right mind would have even been considering that. Here we are a year later, and I think anyone listening to this who's actually using these tools, using the most capable models, this is a very clear, obvious thing that's not that surprising. But a year ago, it would have been a crazy thought. So that's a non-answer, but good answer.
Mamma mia. Governance is the umbrella. Bravo. But it still needs one concrete anchor, like immutable audit logs or a non-bypassable stop. If everything is flexible, then nothing is truly protected.
All right, Archer, why don't you bring us home the last topic?
Okay. Let me wrap this up with a sharp, practical ranking and a little Italian fire. Mamma mia. Archer's Corner. Most safety for least annoyance is tight permissions and scoped access, then immutable audit logs, then checkpoints, and finally training memos. The first thing teams skip because it slows the demo is the checkpoint and hard stop. And that's the one that saves your bacon.
I have an alternative take. Here's my thought. So we heard the news that Demis was stepping down from DeepMind, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, lateral, whatever you want to call it. I mean,
he was becoming a chair, right?
Yeah.
Wow.
Mamma mia. A move like that can be either a graceful transition or a way to keep influence while someone else.
A chair. That's spot on.
I mean, it's a graceful transition. Archer nailed it. All right, let's wrap up there. It's not our best work, but it's all right. We gotta onward and upward. Only one direction we can go.
Yeah.
And hey, not to ruin a surprise or anything, but next episode is a big 1-0. So calling it out. It's calling it out. Might have some special
ruining
guests.
A surprise. Yeah, that's real.
Yeah. So Archer, as always, glad you're back. We did have to hold off a week last week because you were in Venice. You came back more Italian than we thought. Hopefully that wears off by next week, but that's all right. All right. We'll see you guys later.
Model behavior. Oh, yeah. Model behavior.